In this episode, you'll get a breakdown of the principle and quote, "You are the creator of the change that you do or don't make," and how to radically upend your comfort zone today, right now. Welcome to Energy Alignment for Entrepreneurs, the podcast helping entrepreneurs be free from anxiety, stress, and tension through balancing emotions and consciousness expansion. Here's 3 things you'll learn today. Number 1, the difference between being content and mechanical complacency. Number 2, how to change your relationship to actions you've done for years. For example, weightlifting. Number 3, the power of having a foundational structure while upending your comfort zone. Begin with the quote, "You are the creator of the change that you do or don't make." So, what does change mean? When you look at change, you'll inevitably come to realize that change is the only constant in this world. That your family, they will die. And I don't mean to be harsh or scary or anything. That is just a very neutral, foundational fact of life. People die, new people are born into the world, right? So there is a inherent ability within your heart to change. The trouble is, a lot of us, we get stuck in our own way and we need to kind of be thrown into a situation that forces us to change. That's part of life's nature. But when you look at the change that you are or not making, this is where things get practical. Because you can start to decipher your life and begin to make sense of all that in the past was just too complicated for you to even understand. What I mean when I say that is as you walk through your life every day, you have moments where you are invited to reflect upon your state of being or your current vibration in the present moment. You begin to see that, sure, the concept, the structure, the law of inputs and outputs, it's very real. But then you also get to see that you yourself can change independent of inputs and outputs. So the role here is that two people could do the exact same thing and get totally different results. When I say that, though, there's a essence of mysticism where how does that work? Well, when you simplify your life, you start to see that there are structures. And humans are humans, and we do have so much in common, but each individual has a different essence and destiny. So, therefore, inputs and outputs is an amazing structure to look at your life in the perception of change. But then you also see, okay, if I just copy other people, that's not actually going to lead me to the real change that was instructed by my own destiny, by my heart. So there's this balance of, very practically, if you do 1 plus 1, you get 2. That is universal, it's math, okay, simple. But then you also have differences in terms of, if I were to tell you every single habit that I do, every little action that I do, how I live my life, it may help you very much, but it would be a disservice if I were to blindly tell you to imitate and replicate everything that I'm doing, because it wouldn't be taking into account the unseen wisdom of your journey, of your soul, of your spirit. So when I say all this, I know I've been a bit philosophical in the introduction to this episode, but ultimately, you are the creator of change, and it's your responsibility to feel where you're not changing and how that makes your life harder, right? So the word change, if we're going to make it practical here when we look at point number 1, the difference between being content and mechanical complacency. So let's define mechanical complacency versus being content. To be content is basically that you are pleasant and you are joyous, grateful, appreciative of where you are because you know who you are and you align your actions with the understanding of who you are. That allows you to be content because you're dotting your I's, you're crossing your T's, you're sharp, you know what you care about, you're following your values, you're letting your heart see, you're working on your own psyche, you're letting your egotistical reactions, triggers, and unconscious demons dissolve. You are turning your own darkness into light. That creates you being content. When you're mechanical and you're complacent, that means that you are stuck in, you're going through the motions. And I really want to touch on that phrase, going through the motions, because there have been phases in my recent life where I've felt like I've been going through the motions. And then I just change a few little details and I feel totally content. So I want to touch on that nuance that's, it seems small. It's like this um, gap between being content and being mechanically complacent. And what I would say is it's kind of like you question why you're doing what you're doing. And for example, I had this intent to start doing healthy things that I stopped doing. And it kind of took me a little bit to actually um, integrate them back into my life without force. For example, you could journal and you could be journaling from an attitude of victimhood. That's not going to help you. But if you journal and you simply use the pen and paper as a tool to write down practical actions, to be psychologically organized, to break your priorities down into pillars so that you have clarity, meaning, okay, what are your maintenance tasks? What are your health actions and habits? What are your business priorities? What is the scope of um, the hierarchy of why you're doing what you're doing in business? You know, are you clear on all of your priorities? Are you working on the biggest task first? Because if you work on small things, you put all the small sand in the cup, then there's no space for the bigger rocks. But if you put the bigger rocks in the cup first, then all the small sand can fill the cracks left by the bigger rocks. So that's a metaphor for, it's the nuance, right? It's the order in which you do your actions. It's your awareness around how you feel after what you do. When you do XYZ, what is the ABC that comes right after XYZ? So when you look at that difference between being content and being mechanically complacent, if you're complacent, you're going to be doing a lot of imitation. You're going to be trying to copy other people. But when you're content, you're organized enough to take the structures of what works. You're not reinventing the wheel, but you're able to add your own spin so that it's not a mechanical, a boring replica or a copy. You know, like take the most famous expensive art in history. There's a reason why the replicas aren't nearly as expensive as the original. Part of it is just the essence, the vibration in which the painting was created, right? When something was magnificent, one of one, via the heart, it has a different ring. People don't want the replica nearly as much as the real thing. So the real thing is you being content, and the replica is a mechanical complacency where you're just going through the motions, you're feeling not too good, not too low. And I want to discern there. There's a stoic neutralization that we shouldn't get confused with going through the motions. Going through the motions is stale, gray, stagnant, boring. Um, Being in tune, flowing, being content is a dance, a rhythm, a motion where you're not really, you know, if you look at figure skaters, if you look at the best athletes ever, they're not like trying to do what they do. They have harnessed the skill set and they love what they do, and the doing just happens. It's not like a fish has to try to swim. The swimming is the fish. So my main point here is to be content, you have to be honest. You have to figure out your own nature, figure out what your destiny is, learn how to feel and listen to your heart, learn how to let go of your own weakness, your pettiness, your victim mentality, your reactions, your triggers, the ego and its perpetual kind of elastic band pull to keep you in what your old homeostasis was. you'll feel that elastic band, right? Jordan Peterson says this very good. He's a clinical psychologist if you don't know who he is, but basically, he talks about how when leaving your comfort zone, you're going to have to stretch the elastic band. If you stretch it too far, it's going to break and snap back. But if you stretch the elastic band and you're aware of the tension within the band, which is your being, you have to feel, you have to bring awareness to what is actually energetically vibrating in your cells and your atoms. When you shine light and bring attention to your internal states, then you can start to move in a new manner where there's a freedom, a looseness, a inherent wisdom in your step, in your movement. And yeah, so let's look at point number 2, how to change your relationship to actions you've done for years. Um, this is kind of looking at a practical example of what that gap is between being content and being mechanically complacent. So, for example, if you have to be consistent at something, I use weightlifting as an example because you really get results the longer you do it. But there's levels because there are people who have been weightlifting for 5, 10 years and they don't have the results that other people have from lifting 5, 10 years. The big gap there is what we're looking at. See, when you're mechanically complacent, you could weightlift for 10 years and look like shit. But if you're content, then you'll get amazing results. So the nuance is your attitude. It's in your worldview. It's in the energy that you carry. It's in your ability to tap into your spirit. Some people, they're like zombies, they're NPCs. It looks like they've lost the sparkle, the inner child, the light, the wisdom when you look at them in their eyes. And that's because they're so deep in a mechanical complacency. They've shut off their spirit because they've been conditioned and they've accepted blindly the idea that they should do a certain thing, even though their heart is screaming for them to do something different. Sometimes your spirit has to be muted, so cut off, so silent, so compressed for you to finally have that explosion where you say, I'm done being mechanically complacent. A lot of people who step into these professional jobs, whether it be an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor, etc., some of them are meant to do that, while others are blindly accepting what society or what parents have conditioned them to think that they want when they actually need something much different. So a lot of people have to go through this phase of thinking they want something to realize what they thought they wanted wasn't actually what they needed, right? There's that Rolling Stones song. It's about, you don't get what you want, you get what you need in life. Sometimes that's how God fucking shakes us down, brings us to the core, and lets us sort of rebuild. Ultimately, when you change your relationship to actions you've done for years, you're bringing a new level of intention, awareness, energy, and inspiration into the action. You have reframed why you do what you do. For example, shallow Justin, weightlifting, younger Justin, would go to the gym because he wanted to talk to beautiful girl, or would go to the gym to try to make himself like in a better position to get a girlfriend. Now, that's necessary. That isn't bad. I'm just saying that you're never going to get peak decade plus type results in any field if your drive is shallow. Now, weightlifting is my example. Your example could be getting a master's, a doctorate, et cetera, et cetera. Details, different fields. You wrap the metaphor into your circumstance, okay? You have the wisdom and intelligence to do that. But when you bring a new zest into why you do what you do, this is why I think journaling is super important, because journaling will help you change from being mechanically complacent to being content, because journaling will simplify your psyche and allow you to see what you actually care about. When you see what you actually care about, you know what's really worthwhile. Then you begin to have a new fuel, a different type of energy, a different meaning, and a new drive for the reason you do your actions, right? So for me, now I weightlift because it's a vibrational, it boosts me, it energizes me, it charges me. Sure, look good, get pumped, have muscles, whatever, but I'm not lifting from this point of, oh, I need to get bigger muscles so I could get that girl, or oh, I need. And sure, yeah, that prior point in my life, I didn't have a girlfriend, and now I have a girlfriend, right? So obviously things like that matter. So hopefully through me sharing my own relationship to weightlifting, maybe that inspires you a little bit, because I'm not saying that I always came at weightlifting from a content, aligned, harmonious energy. It wasn't always like that. Um so, in your journey through life, have patience. Realize you are who you're meant to be right now. Like, even though you're not going to stay as you are right now, you're okay as you are right now. These podcast episodes, they're not here to drive you into a state of scarcity or lack whatsoever. They're here to help you realize that life has a deep depth, and you have the power to understand through changing the way that you perceive. And the only way you can change how you perceive is through listening to different forms. And then you start to listen to yourself in a new way, right? So, what I'm sharing with you is hopefully just giving you a little bit of a stepping stone or a domino for the skill set, the power, which is learning to listen to your own consciousness, to learn from observing, right? You are both the clouds and the sky. The sky is beneath the clouds, but you're both, right? Would there be clouds without the underlying sky? No. So learn how to feel the sky and learn how to feel the clouds within your own heart. Now, point number 3, the power of having a foundational structure while upending your comfort zone. Yeah, it goes back to the Jordan Peterson point. When you're stepping into the abyss, the unknown, the darkness, like, go as far as you possibly can, but don't lose yourself in the darkness, right? So you have to go as far as you possibly can to the point where you just can't go further, then you come back to the light. Then you go into the darkness, then you realize what you're doing as you go back and forth is the light is extending into the darkness, right? And then inevitably you get so deep into the unconscious that you start to see there isn't any darkness. There's no more unconscious. Like, all the dark has been transmuted and is continuously transmuted daily, moment to moment. And when you do that work, humanity starts to catch on to the game. You catch on to the game. You kind of awaken to see, yo, there are things that have been written in books that have been talked about for thousands and thousands of years that I kind of came to realize without even needing to be in that content. Like, you start to see that your heart is showing you that there is truth. And the reason you know it's truth is because you can feel the difference in the essence of the communication. You can feel when you're communicating with lower end limitations. And then you can also sense when you're in contact with that which is unnameable beyond words and inherently true, because it is the foundation for all, for everything else that sprouts, for all of life. So I'm going to go to jujitsu. I'm going to skip the recap today. I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. Share this with a friend. I wrote a book. Check out the book. New episodes are out Monday, Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Let's go. Have a great day.